anyway, it's part of the journey we're on. So was I told to be quiet? I can't sort of message.
So sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I just we got an alert to shush.
We'll have to go live.
My nerves. My nerves.
Thank you so much, though. I think it's a good icebreaker for everybody. So we hope everybody can turn their mics on mute so we can go live. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Design Week Philippines 2022 Design for All. I am Kookie Santos of Canva Philippines, and I will be your host and moderator for today's exciting session. This is day 6 of Design Week, and what an eventful 11th year celebration it has been so far. Earlier this week, we were joined by Kylie Misa, Jeannie Lakay, and Noreen Bautista in discovering why Indigenous is indeed innovative. We also heard from next-gen leaders in the business of Philippine design. Anya Lim of Anthill Fabrics, Kay Aransanzo, Petra Gana, and Corinne Serrano of And a Half, Roma Agsunod of Common Room. These fearless designers shared how they navigated one of the most disruptive events of our times and how they have been adapting beyond the pivot. Today, we have another exciting installment for you. By now, the term branding has been pretty ubiquitous. We've seen it used almost everywhere, from the corporate level down to even the personal level. But what does it truly mean to design a brand? For today's session on designing brands, we will be joined by branding luminary and Pentagram partner, Domenic Lippa, as he takes us through the brand refresh of SM. Domenic will give us a peek under the hood and walk us through the process behind visually representing the essence of the SM brand and capturing its values and sensibilities through design. Afterwards, he will be joined by a panel with Mara Coson of SM, Marla Darwin of Natural Selection Design, and Angelo Cuyegkeng of Canva Philippines. Of course, this session was made possible by the tireless work of the Design Center team and its Design Week partners, the Department of Trade and Industry. Our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board Philippines, First United Building, Hub Make Lab. Our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our official online magazine partner, our media partner, our government partner, our satellite events. Let's tell the Design Week story together. Post on your timelines, grids, and stories to capture FOMO-worthy moments and quotable learnings, and use the hashtags Design Week PH 2022 and hashtag Design for All. All right, so before we dive in, let us do a warm-up. On the screen is a QR code, which will lead you to Mentimeter, where we'll get a sense check of what's on everyone's mind. If you are having a hard time with the QR code, you may log on to www.menti.com and use the code 21183466. As you settle into our Mentimeter, I will give you a head start by sharing our 2 questions for the day. For our first question, what makes a good brand? What makes a good brand in one word? For me, I'll share first. My one word is holistic, because beyond just the logo or collaterals or what it looks like on the surface, a good brand also holistically considers the in-depth full experience, what it says, what it does, and what it feels like. It's thoughtful to purpose, to its product, and to its people, taking every decision and action with deliberation and intention. So I am seeing starting answers here. Big ones on clarity. I'm liking that. To have a good brand is clarity, meaning it's easy to understand. Related words, memorable and recognizable is coming. I'm loving that there is also sustainability coming in, and we're seeing that progression with the brands that we do. All right. Relevant, disruptive. I also love the warmth here of people who have said honest, purposeful, clear, familiar. emotional connection. So thank you so much for those answers. That was a very nice way for us to, personally, I enjoyed seeing that, really seeing like how we understand brands now. So I want to move to the next question. I'm really excited. So just before we start, here's our second question for the day. On the 11th year of Design Week Philippines, what do you wish for Philippine design as the festival enters a new decade? What do you wish for Philippine design? And I want to start with mine. My wish for Philippine design is a healthy, enriched, and supported community of creatives, craftspeople, and designers in order to show the world the fullness of our creative capacity. Care and respect must be continually progressing for our Filipino creative scene, process, output, and creatives. We cannot pour from an empty cup, so I wish for sustained thoughtfulness to care for ourselves and for others in the creative community. And we're seeing some answers come in. See its own beauty, progressive, truly local. Yes, and more sustainability coming in. Thank you for that. Thriving with more inclusivity, support, and to be respected. Tatak Pinoy Designs, it means a stamp of Filipino greatness, reflection of distinct Filipino creative talent. And also really important for us in the Philippines, finding our own voice. This is a very important thing as we continue to grow our creative culture. Okay. Thank you so much for those answers. I really, really appreciate all the answers that have come in. It's a great warm-up. And the answers also tell me that we're ready to expand our appreciation of design's role in the brand's identity. Today's presenter can help us with that. Our main speaker is an internationally recognized designer known for his work in identity, packaging, retail graphics, typography, signage, and print. He has been a partner at Pentagram London since 2006, working with a wide range of clients such as Swarovski, H&M, and the University of the Arts. As the design director for the London Design Festival since 2007, he works with the festival's team to develop all aspects of their graphic output. In 2015, this undertaking led to the creation of a new brand identity for the London Design Biennale. Please welcome Pentagram's Domenic Lippa. Hello. Hi, Domenic. I hope you're having a good morning over there. How are you?
It's wet in London morning today, but we're used to the wet weather in London. But I'm very well, and thank you for inviting me to participate this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening.
Yes, same here. I am pretty sure everybody's excited to hear from you. I am personally excited to hear from you. And without further ado, I'm actually going to make you start. You can go ahead and start sharing your screen.
As I was saying to my colleagues, this is always the most nervous part of my day when I'm having to share a screen. Now I'm going to press play. I hope that
it is working perfectly. Yes, it does.
Okay. Right. I'm now going to press my stop clock because I'm under strict orders to not go over time. Can I start now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So what I'm going to give you this afternoon is a short glimpse into a journey that I've been on with especially Mara Coson and the family and the whole team at SM. As I've been said, my name is Domenic Lippa. I'm a partner at Pentagram. I am a designer. That's my day job. I get up every day and design, and I still enjoy it. But when I was thinking about this presentation, I talked and labeled it a brand refresh, and it's important to distinguish this. We could have called it the development or an evolution. all are applicable to this project, but it's actually still a brand identity. But we were very keen that this is not a new identity. So a little bit about Pentagram. If you don't know about us, we work with companies and organizations from all over the world, from startups to well-known brands, from tech companies to heritage brands, from single person owners to global companies. We work in every sector you can imagine: arts and culture, banking and finance, public sector, design and architecture, education, entertainment, fashion and health, and drink, healthcare, hospitality, manufacturing, it goes on. It's a very broad area. Our experience includes brand identity, signage and environmental graphics, book design, campaigns, data-driven design. Again, you can read that. We have a wealth of experience, and this is why we all enjoy working at Pentagram. It's the broad range of our work. We are 50 years old this year. We've just celebrated our 50th anniversary. I am not one of the founders. I'm the third generation of owner. There have been 50 partners. There are currently 22 and 4 offices. But we have no new business directors, no managing partners, no account directors, no creative directors, only people who are very good at communication. The partners and their team work directly with their clients throughout the project life. So I have my own team. I have a couple of project managers, and I have about 5 designers. So I actually am quite a small design company within the greater family of Pentagram, as all my partners are the same way. But at the heart of what we do are brands. These are some of the brands that we've designed. These are not our clients. These are people that we have actually designed logos for and brands over the years. And there's the variety, I think, really keeps us all alive. So whether it's finance, technology, culture is very important to us. So we do a lot of work within that sector: media, high street, food, fashion, education, high street again, manufacturing, transport, luxury. It really is a very broad palette. But what was interesting about this project, and I want to talk about briefly before I show you the work, is about evolving brands. And we believe strongly that not all brands need complete reinvention, but all brands do change and they all do evolve. But we believe, again, strongly that if you don't know what the problem is, you won't be able to find the solution. So I'm going to show you very quickly 3 other case studies that you might not know about. Was actually something like Tiffany was redesigned by Pentagram. So we've shown the old logo at the top, new logo beneath. And the subtlety of the work would probably not be seen by many people, but it just shows the modernity of the brand. The job actually was interesting because when they approached Pentagram, they had about 20 versions of this color, and we standardized it. It was all about consistency. So on the left was the old box, on the right was the new box. So again, we made it smaller, and you can see on the right how we actually made the color go throughout the whole box. Same with the bag. Left is the old bag, right is the new one. But we actually changed the handle. It's all about the detail. And this is some of the execution. Equally with MasterCard, another evolving company we've worked with. Old logo on the left, new company, new logo on the right. Very well known, a global brand. Again, like Tiffany worked out of our New York office. This shows the evolving nature of the identity. But it's not just about the mark, and you'll see this from the SM work. It's also about the typography, the color, the iconography. Every detail of a brand needs to be looked at. And then the easy part, I would say confidently, is how it gets executed and how it gets applied. I mean, the simplification of a brand, I think brands need to be more confident and need to sort of simplify their message. And finally, something out of London, Liberty is a very old heritage brand in London. You can see the image on the left is the old identity and the one on the right is the new identity. And I'm just going to show a little piece of animation. Now, I think sometimes design is about archaeology. You actually have to find something that they have. And we did this again with SM, but it's all about the detail of the Liberty brand. But obviously, as a fashion brand, as a retailer, how it moves into the current world through a digital platform need to be considered. So we actually developed a new typeface for them. How do you marry heritage and modernity? And again, this is something I'll touch on with SM, but it was all about the confidence, and this is all about fabrics. It's a very emotional brand. But then we also looked at how this brand could be made quite dynamic. So we looked at quite brave typographic, and we've actually been working on our own fabric design. So again, that's an interesting development for us. Anyway, so why I'm here, SM Group. This is really what we all you want me to talk about, and what I want to share with you. I was saying earlier to my colleagues, this actually started quite a few years ago when Mara and I spoke, I think around 2018. I might be wrong about that, but we had a slight pause in the conversation, and then we talked about working together at the end of 2019. And what I always start with showing people are what was the brief, what was the ambition for my client. So it was to review and analyze the master brand to identify the problems and to see firsthand where there are inconsistencies. You will hear that word quite a lot, consistency and inconsistency. To review the brand architecture in the context of the visual identity to identify where sectors of the business need improvements. To recommend a course of action to help unify the core brand, whether this be a visual identity system or creation of additional assets. But really, and this is again to produce clear, concise, and consistent master brand guidelines. Again, our process, I mean, we spend a lot of time talking, listening and talking before we start any identity. And we were able to interview key stakeholders, family members, as well as key senior management within the firm. Vitally important. And out of that, we got to understand what the issues were. Some were contradictory, but that was important. We were able to review the strengths and weaknesses of the brand, look at competition in the brand landscape, recommend a course of action, and agree whether a new strategy was needed. I need to say at this point, this was all done as the pandemic hit in 2020. So everything was done. Mara and I became, I think, close friends remotely until we finally met. But it was an interesting process. So we fed back a lot of things we heard. Some were contradictory. Keep blue, make blue more dynamic. I won't go through all this, but there's a lot of information we've played back into the team. What does SM stand for? Interesting enough, when we looked at the heritage, and it is a heritage brand, this shows some of where the original mark came from. Some of the values that hadn't changed. So we were able to actually build on something, which was actually really useful for me as a brand designer. So things like we've got it all for you did not change. We were able to sort of keep that as a thread within our work. But in summary, what was needed, build consistency, but we recognized that we were moving into a digital age and how the brand, the old logo basically did not work at a small scale online. So this is the old brand, as you would all know. And when you shrunk this down on screen, it just all filled in. This also, I think, is a great slide. It shows in a way, the challenge we had, the inconsistencies. But there were some consistent points, but there's a spectrum, a barometer of challenges. And part of our job was to actually see where we can actually unify the brand. So we broke things down. Typography, again, you can see the challenge. Inconsistent use of fonts. Color, same as Tiffany. Blue was a wonderful color, but it was used differently. Even scale and proportion these are all details, but they're really special that when I shared this with the family, that they can see that there were inconsistencies. Design isn't always about big things. You can make small changes that become big changes. Lockup arrangements, stacked, horizontal, right baseline, no line, right, range left and horizontal. I mean, there was all this going on. And what Mara really wanted me to do was bring a degree of, it needed to sort of bring things together, build consistency, improve design. But there's another thing I wanted to also do is bring personality and attitude. And that's an unusual added added element. So it's about putting the brand at the heart of the experience. And that's the word I think we should think about. And again, looking to the future while respecting your heritage. So I summarized it as my recommendation was own blue as a color, own a typeface, own the circle, and own desirability. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on. So what I'm going to take you through now is a series of assets that we developed for the team at SM, starting with the logo. And this is obviously the most, not contentious, but we had to be very gentle. And I like these sort of projects because it's all about, I say, the detail. And one of my designers, David, I asked him, he said, okay, look at that. What are the problems? What are the challenges? And once you sort of really being analytical about it, you can see that the gray horizontal strips show the varying line widths. The spacing wasn't quite right. So we looked at all these and we said, but I mean, interestingly enough, we looked at very radical redesigns that I didn't show the client because I didn't think it was right. I mean, what if it's all Helvetica? God help us. If it was all Times New Roman, God help us. But I actually love this mark. I think it has personality and I wanted to retain that. So what we looked at is something that would work moving forward as a digital first brand, which is interesting. And we went through a whole series we worked with different type designers and mark designers about creating something. And we ended up with a version on the right. And we then tested that out. What was interesting, if I flick back and forth, we went from an outline, the circle, to a solid, because it's about confidence. Now, this presentation, you will see things starting to creep in, which I can't do everything linear. You can see the color, but you can see what I've done here with scale, large and small. And we started to explore that with our clients about what does the master brand mean and confidence. And as I say, this is not working purely linear. What we decided upon was actually two blues. And that was an important element. Now, this is the desirability. The reason for this is that I really wanted the master brand to be liberated from that lockup that we previously had. So we developed a strategy around a single horizontal vertical angle on the right, but also a dynamic. It's almost like a still frame of a piece of animation. Looked at how that then works with imagery. So I'm not sure whether you can see this, but there's a degree of transparency. I wanted the mark to be part of an image, not just put on top, so that we start to explore that. And then this starts to show how it might work within clothing. So the little girl's arm is just in front of the logo. It's cropped off. It's centered at the food, or it's cropped off with the bowling alley. Also flipping the colors. Flexibility was an important part of this brand. So going back to the color, the old blue is on the left. The new palette was a royal blue for what I would call the more corporate elements and a new electric blue. Now, I won't go into all the secondary palettes that we developed. You'll see that later, but it was all about a very reverential color palette for what I would say the corporate on the left and a more energetic electric blue on the right. Again, it's about experience. Retail is quite different from the investment side of SM. The group is very large and it has a diverse audience. So I needed to give the brand flexibility. Again, I won't go into this too much, but this was a strategy about reverence, friendly, and energetic, and how we can work with that. There's a whole color presentation. But then really what it's about was if you liberate the master brand, but we have a need to actually still describe what are the other parts of the sectors. So we developed this brand architecture with a prefix, so SM store, SM market, because the company and the audience, the consumers, the people were already sort of talking about it in that context. But liberating the two elements became quite an interesting dynamic. Again, our role was look at the master brand, the word marks, which are the business units, names, branch names. But then there's a whole raft of other business units that we weren't going to touch because of the complexity. And this just sort of shows how the brand architecture is starting to come together from actually quite corporate moving into internal employer brand, then more retail and more dynamic. So the flexibility was something I think and I hope that the client can work with themselves, because obviously I cannot, being based in London, I cannot implement everything. So there was a dynamic nature, and it was very collaborative. You've got to understand, we were having weekly meetings with the board, with the family, with everybody on these issues. And then things started to come together, how circles can be used, how it can all come together with different environments. A new asset, we talked about maybe some new assets that are patterns. This is the start of a journey I want them to take more control of. These are some patterns we generated. Patterns can be very subliminal and minimal. They can be, you can hide them, they can be very loud and bright. But it is an asset that I think can also become quite dynamic in a digital sphere. So these are just some examples, like wrapping paper, just being more joyful and celebratory about who you're working with and who you're talking with. You know, it's starting to bring the SM brand to life, and I do mean that it has a life to it. Interesting enough, halfway through the project, we were talking about typefaces, and we were showing some other work we'd done for Virgin Money that had a bespoke font. So we discussed about maybe creating, and this will be also economically better for SM to own their own font. So I worked with one of my partners in London, Luke Powell, and we commissioned an outside type designer, and we developed a Henry Sands typeface, which we're very proud of. And again, it goes from a light through to a black, which is a very bold font. And this becomes a thread through the whole brand. And this is, in a way, a very powerful part of the brand. It all came from, I like the E, it's the generosity of that counter. It's a very friendly font that can be used with authority, but it can be very engaging. It can be used as a text, but also as a headline. And then again, this is a bit more detail about how the corporate and retail word marks split with the stronger font, stronger color palette on the left. And then we developed a typographic style using the weights, which is quite ownable to SM. So there's a lot going into it. So finally, I've got 7 minutes left on my clock, 6.5. The fun bit of any design. So that's all the hard work. We spend a lot of time with the client, a lot of time developing the assets, but we all know the world doesn't see the brand in those isolated ways. It's all about how it works together. So what I'm going to share with you are some visuals that we've used over the course of the presentation, the working relationship, starting with the corporate work. Because again, that's in the field of finance and insurance. So it needed something actually quite, I'm lowering my voice, quite quiet and quite, grown up. So you can see the typography is very centered. We're not being very playful with the typography. You can see the pattern on the inside on the top right of maybe a brochure, but it's all about trust and authority, and really about being, I say, very mature in its presentation. The image on the bottom right, SM Investments with the mark, is all centered, and there's all very nice structure to it. But there are little details like the lanyard. We brought the employee's photograph into a circle, so there are still nods to the assets. Then on property, where we're starting to, I would say, turn up the volume a bit. We all decided that because SMDC had a powerful lozenge and shape, that we would keep that, but then we would move into a slightly brighter electric blue. Again, the use of the font weights was just a bit more of an expressionistic direction. But then when we move entertainment, you're dealing with you're talking about families going to play, bowling alleys, going to the cinema. So we really started to dial this up. So you can see how the pattern, the graphics become stronger and louder. And when we looked at how advertising might see, it's where we start to split the connection between the word marks, which are at the top, and the master brand. That becomes, as I say, this real drive. It's the heart of the identity. And finally, within the retail, I was lucky enough to be sent lots of videos of the openings and I mean, we don't have that in the UK, being very British. We're very straight, and yours are great celebrations. So we always had that, I kept on sharing that with my team. So, you have a much more engaging, dynamic part of the identity. And it was really all about that master brand having permission to be quite dynamic. Sometimes it's bleeding off slightly. You can see it overlay in the shoes. Sometimes it's all about the pattern. There's also a desire to be sustainable. I mean, I think that's a great thing we heard earlier. It's a real bedrock of this project and many of the projects we're working on in Pentagram. So we're looking at recycled paper and how that works, therefore, with the brown was really important to us. We then looked at how, I do a lot of environmental graphics, retail graphics. We did do a whole family of icons, you can see top left, all based on a circle. Then looking at weights of type and how the blue interacts. So we've been working on this, but also knowing that it's going to go into a digital, these are future-proofing the identity. So delivery systems, vans, mopeds, but also how it might work in the future as a e-commerce site. So we're starting to look at that. The challenge was also signage, because signage is very expensive. We didn't want to sort of start again. This is a very gently applied identity. So, but this was again for the future, but showing how it would work. And again, bags and even packaging that we've been looking at. And then this is the last slide. So that's more or less the end of my presentation. The next slide is a small piece of animation I just want to play for you, and that will conclude my presentation. So hopefully you'll all hear this well. What I'd like to just end on is that, and we say this a lot, but we genuinely mean it, Pentagram can do good work because we have great clients. This is as much the work of the SM team, and especially Mara, who I work closely with. And without their input, especially throughout the pandemic, we wouldn't have been able to achieve what we've been able to achieve. So I'm very surprised at myself. I'm actually hitting 25 minutes. So I am sorry. So that's my presentation, and I will stop sharing at this point.
Thank you so much, Domenic. I just wanted to say, in that video, many Filipinos must be reacting that they recognized that sound bite at the last part. That was like a really nice surprise. So that was a fun.
Well, Mara, really again, I have to thank Mara for being. We worked with a sound designer from the Philippines on that, and as I say, we started the process with some of the animation, but it's as much her handwriting on that and the sound design. So I have to thank them. And the end nod, I mean, that's about the heritage again. So we were very keen to keep that in. So So
Yes.
that I hope, as you can imagine, that is a tiny percentage of the work we did with the clients, and it would take me a whole day to go through everything. But it's been a joyful experience.
Thank you. That was a joyful surprise. And I just want to share with the audience as well a few takeaways and synthesis from Dominic's talk. 4 points. The first point being brand evolution. Not all brands need complete reinvention while acknowledging that brands grow and evolve. This was the case for SM. The big impact of subtlety and detail. Committing to simplicity comes from the recognition and distillation of complex structures and problems. The third point, confidence in simplicity. When you know what your brand wants to own and stand for, you can design with confidence and simplicity, knowing that decisions have been made deliberately. And lastly, the value of the master brand. Taking the time to strategically create strong yet simple foundations can allow liberation for flexibility from professionalism down to playfulness. So again, thank you so much, Domenic. We can't wait to hear more from you in the panel. And so, are you ready to learn more about how design figures into branding and in the local landscape? We will start with our panel discussion. Our first panelist is a group sustainability advisor at SM Investments. She concurrently serves as a VP at SM Retail, focusing on marketing and digital strategy. In 2020, she led the refresh of the SM brand. She is also an advisor to the BDO art collection and developed Carivin, which has become a destination for arts, culture, and food. Please welcome Mara Coson. Welcome, Mara. Hello, hello. Good to be here. Yes, really good to have you here. And our second panelist is co-founder and design director of Natural Selection Design, a small design studio that specializes in brand identity and packaging design. The studio loves a good acronym and has been part of sprucing up well-loved Filipino brands such as Fita and Skyflakes. Apart from studio work, she also designs for her husband's craft beer nano brewery, Palm Tree Abbey. She is a proud soccer mom. Let's welcome Marla Darwin. Hi, Marla.
Hi. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And lastly, our last panelist is a motion designer and producer with over 10 years of experience in the creative industry. He has worked on shows and brands for McDonald's CN, Yahoo, History Channel, and Nickelodeon. Currently, Angelo leads the design specialty at Canva Philippines, where he helped grow the team from 35 creatives in 2019 to more than 270 in 2022, making the Philippines a design center of excellence across the global Canva network. As design specialty lead, Angelo oversees both global and local creative projects and provides strategic guidance to creative teams within Canva. Please welcome Angelo Cuyegkeng. Hi, Angelo.
Hi, everyone.
Happy to have everyone here in the discussion. So let's start. And the first thing that I want to ask is a thought starter. What makes a good brand? And Domenic, you talked about SM and your experience when it comes to brands. So let's start with you.
I thought it was very interesting when you put up those words that you asked from the audience, because I think I couldn't beat those words. They were sort of so spot on. I mean, for me, I mean, you know, when we're talking with clients about their brands or themselves, some of the words I think that are important to us is honesty. You know, that they're honest with us and themselves about what they are. I think when companies or brands try and be something that they're not, I think we as consumers can read through that. So I always need to know, or I think a great brand has to have integrity, honesty, transparency in those issues. I think the product, whatever the brand is, needs to be in a way not formulaic or repetitive to something else. A design can't make a brand better in a way if you understand what I mean. It's the product. You've got a good product, the design and the brand should enhance that experience. So I think I get very depressed when people come and see me and I think actually their product isn't very good and they're trying to elevate it because that's what they think the brand will do to them. And I think that's where it will fail. If the product is good, then the brand will be a success.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah. Yes, that's nice. It's so important to be true to yourself before you can transform any sort of perception from external people. And I would want to hear another branding voice here as well. Marla.
Okay, what makes a good brand?
Yes.
The word that came to mind for me was something useful, because when I think of my favorite brands, they function so well that I don't even have to think about it. You forget it's there. So I'm thinking of like really good subway systems, like really good transportation that you're able to get from one place to the other. And then when you reflect back, why was that so seamless? Oh, they used a good typeface. A subway system that looks like a capillary, they were able to fix it into straight lines. And what's really nice about brands that function that way, it speaks to a vast demographic of people, because most people who don't have a design education won't necessarily respond to, ooh, that's a nice color palette, ooh, I like that kind of photography. What they'll respond to is that it functions well, and then they won't even realize it's because of good design.
Yeah, going back to that, subtlety and detail is so important to a good experience. Mara, what are your thoughts on a good brand?
Yeah, actually, so Marla hit on a point there that you almost don't have, like, a good brand is something whose effects you don't really need to see. It's almost like it's something that you live with every day, and if it makes sense, I think then it becomes a good brand. It's still a question that I've also tried to figure out, especially throughout the exercise that I had with Dom throughout this whole partnership, like trying to figure out what is a good brand, and also making some mistakes, some assumptions, trying to see, like, okay, does a good brand do this, and it was I guess in a way I almost grew to know this question a bit better over time, and it can be many things, just as earlier in the Mentimeter, it was clarity, it was many different things, and it's hard to say in one sentence, but I think a good brand is what really makes sense in the environment that it's in, and that it's so functional and so good, to Marla's point, that you almost don't notice.
Yeah, I like that multi-dimensionality, like really embracing all those dimensions and making sure that every single point is consistent. And lastly, Angelo, what makes a good brand?
Well, the others already put a lot of made a lot of really good points already. I think the one word I would throw in there would be consistency, because consistency can apply to different things, right? So being consistent in the experience, being consistent in understanding your audience, your customer, your user, being consistent in addressing a problem, and being consistent in providing that solution for that need. So that's what I would throw in there.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of consistency, which Domenic really talks about a lot, we want to move on to that process and now on the SM side. And so this will be a question for Mara. What led to the refresh of the SM brand, and how was that branding process for you, especially that it was during the start of the pandemic where so much things were changing aside from SM already changing and evolving there?
Yeah, so that was an interest. I guess it was interesting beginning. So I mean, I'd been meaning to work with Dom for some time, and I could see that we were reaching a moment where we needed to think about the future, and so it was for us two things, which was what are we going to be, what are we going to look like in the future, and also at the same time how do we unify our brand. So the future part I'll take you guys through quite easily. It's really just we were thinking a lot more about sustainability, a lot more about new concepts and bringing that in. And we wanted to move forward, and we realized, okay, wait, our current brand feels static. And so we were like, okay, something to think about. And then for unity, we were also thinking, for example, at SM Retail, we have a lot of visual materials, and sometimes we'd end up getting stuck with, well, what font do we use? How big should the logo be? What color do we use? And so that's when we started to realize, like, it was happening across the whole group. We didn't have a clear set of guidelines. We weren't sure, what blue really, even if we did have an SM blue. So from a customer perspective, or from people who kind of live with SM every day, they know it's blue, but we were almost serving all sorts of blue, the whole spectrum, and because we were, I guess, growing so fast, every time we had a new concept, we'd be like guessing, like, okay, as long as there's a blue logo there, and that it's SM, I think it'll be fine. And another thing that's really important to note is digitally, we were, trying to be online more and using that logo, as Dom mentioned. Every time we tried to shrink it a little bit, it just crumbled. So with all of that in mind, that's the problem that then we spoke to Dom about, and we've actually embarked on this project during the pandemic, which is still so crazy because it's like he was helping us from half the world away, and we were sending like archival photos, we were sending videos, we were kind of going through the mall, trying to show him, like, okay, this is what it looks like, trying to really let him imagine what the space feels like. And we were also, I think, doing like a day in the life interview. So all these things, in the effort to really create solutions for some of our needs of being consistent, of creating guidelines, so it was quite fun. I think maybe Dom can speak more about it.
I mean, it was a challenge, but I think I was saying earlier that thankfully we have these platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams that we were able to quite regularly, and I say Mara got used to seeing this is my studio at home in my garden quite regularly. I mean, I did a presentation to the family at 4 a.m. my time, and I went back to bed afterwards. But it was the process was actually, I mean, it wouldn't be if I could do it now, I would definitely come and spend some more time. You can't beat that, and we just had to find a way of making it work. But I was able to share a lot with Mara. Is this going too far? What are we missing something? There was a lot of interaction between us. So I think the process was, and this is the process how we like to work at Pentagram. It's with the client. It's not just a cold, 3 weeks later, this is the solution. We need to understand, I always say my clients understand their business. I know design. So it's actually the marrying up of those two elements. And then you're just finding moments where, I mean, I sometimes say to Mara, you told me not to change the color, not to change the logo, not to change anything, and we end up changing everything. But it was done, I think, out of respect. It was done with a very, I think, a gentle hand on it. And I think there will be other stages of evolution of the SM brand. And we've done a lot of work also with the team in Manila. They've been sharing their design work with me, and it's been a very, close relationship. We don't get everything right. We are still looking at, Mara and I will keep on talking about colors, secondary colors and everything, because it's an ongoing process. But that's fine. That's how we do all our other projects. So
yeah, I do agree with that. Sometimes when the brand is alive and out there, that's when the real life issues come in, and you have to strengthen the guidelines from there. But from what you and Mara have talked about, what I really liked about it is how that client designer relationship, it really sounds like a collaborative journey from guesswork to clarity, and really being able to refine that until clients get to a point of clarity where even for them, they know what to do with their brand. So thank you so much for sharing that process.
I mean, I'd just like to say that when we were sharing, there wasn't really any resistance or pushback. I mean, and I don't want to frame it in that way. There were obviously certain things that we were given options on, but it is important. I say you just can't change. You can't start. It's a 6-year-old brand with heritage. You can't just throw that all away. You needed to be very sensitive to what had gone before you to then move on to the future. And I think what we're trying to give Mara and the team are the tools, the assets to go forward. And also, I think we're keen to stay involved and stay, working in some form. Still trying to get over to Manila.
Yes.
One day.
We'd love to see you there. But yes to have your really strong roots and to guide you to the future. And I want to ask, we've heard the SM side of things, but I'm also curious on Marla and Angelo's side. What are your thoughts and insights on that SM case study that Domenic presented? So in your own fields, which part or parts did you resonate with the most? Let's start with you, Marla.
Okay, that slide with the multiple logos, I think that gave me PTSD, because I think any designer who had to work with an older company, especially in the Philippines, there were no design departments. There was no graphic design in the 50s and the 60s. I experienced receiving, hi, so may we have the kind of logos you've received? And then our record was somebody handed us 19 logos. And the story was, it's because nobody could find a logo, and over the years, people would just like scramble something, put something together, and ended up going at the stationery. And I was really blown away to see that so much of the job also is just really standardizing the vast portfolio of brands and type. I wanted to ask though, so Dom, you said there was no resistance from client end, but what changes excited the team? What changes that you proposed like really got everybody buzzing?
I think Mara might be better placed to. I mean, I think it was I think it's a combination of the electric blue became very dynamic, and even though we realised that halfway through we're all looking at different screens, and so I wasn't ever sure what colour Mara was actually looking at. So we then did sort of colour tests, but then even getting things printed in the UK, sending them over and trying to match that was a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. But I think the electric blue, I mean, I like the royal blue and the electric blue because I think they are very clear paths for them. But then, as I say, it was enabling the word mark, the master brand, so the master brand to have this different role. It is. I mean, I've done identities where my logo sits in a particular place, and I think that the master brand moves around because it has a personality. It's alive, and that to me, and I think that was the moment where it became. I say there was, I think, a unified view that was actually honoring the heritage. You know, the cleanup was right, was appropriate, but then we were giving them something that could actually be quite dynamic. But Mara, you might say something completely different.
No, it's also the same. Yeah, I think when people started to see the SM logo, like, tilt that 14-degree angle, people were like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And then it started to get, really, really big, and I think they weren't very used to that. But yeah, as far as resistance, I think everyone felt, at least internally as well, that it was time. So I mean, what shocked me and what made me realize, like, okay, this is actually really happening, was when SMDC was like, okay, we're in support of this. We'll give up our yellow and red and we'll do blue and white in Henry Sans. And I was just like, wow, okay, so yeah, this is truly a brand refresh that really united everyone. So yeah.
I want to jump in. Yeah, that's a surprise because everybody knows that SMDC as that yellow and red box. So, but the nice thing as well is like seeing it in the SM family brand. It still has that familiarity. So yeah, that's thank you for those. Angelo, how about you?
I guess first of all, like initial reaction to like what Dominic presented was like it was really refreshing to see a local company, a local brand of SM scale, to just like really value the process, the thinking, and overall just like values design. And it's really refreshing to see that and get this um, big refresh done, right? So that was my first initial reaction there, and I guess more on like the things that kind of resonated with me. So in my previous life before Canva, I was a motion designer, and I did work on brands as well. And the way I like to look at brands is because like I am a motion designer, a lot of the work that I do is making things move and telling a story that way. And when I do a branding project, it's about taking that storytelling mindset and putting it into that branding kind of environment. So what I really liked about what Dominic showed us was that there was this storytelling that was happening, that you're taking this heritage brand that has gone through these iterations of what they are, and to now bring it into this digital world. So I really like that. And then just putting on my Canva hat, some other parts that really resonated with me. So three things. One, simplicity. I think that's really important in Canva. That's also what we try to do in terms of designing the product, making sure our usability is on point for many of our varied users. So it's really about getting that experience as simple as you can make it. The second one is consistency. I think I talked a little bit about that earlier, and I think the case studies really showed that just being consistent in the way the brand is presented goes a long way. And then I guess the last one for me that resonated was Dominic mentioned something like small changes to the logo or the placement of the lockups can be big changes, and at Canva it's kind of similar, like the way we design the product as well, the way we make sure our usability for our templates and our content are easy, and just like minor changes can really go a long way. So those are like the three things that resonated with me.
Yes, thank you for those insights. And yeah, you talked a lot about scale when it comes to Canva, which actually leads to the next question on scale and longevity. So because brands live and grow over the long term, how does data and insight help you design for people with scale and longevity in mind? So, Domenic?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but I think what we try and do, any person, every person is different, so it's always hard to sort of generalize. I mean, again, it was important that SM and Mara Coson reminding me, SM is not Tiffany. It's a very broad range. Let's not try and over elevate it, and equally not dumb down. There's a very special sort of sweet spot for it. So the scalability, and I don't know whether you mean that's really important to me. Are you talking about data as in information?
Yes, whether it comes in the form of numbers like research, or it could also be from one person that might be helpful. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to that sort of data insight, I have to tell you, I'm nervous of that, because how you do research with creative work can be very mixed. As I did a lot of work with Unilever, and they use data a lot. It can be very insightful, but you can lose the heart of something. And what was more important, I think, for us was the role of senior stakeholders, including the family, but also just including numerous people who really knew their data. So I was pleased that we didn't have to go through a process of research, because I think on the whole, that this is a sweeping statement, it can be negative. I mean, people always say, Steve Jobs never used research for Apple, and that's the most profitable, richest brand in the world. So I think trusting in your heart. I mean, I think also, within Pentagram, I mean, I'm one partner, but we do have a lot of experience, and I think we try to give that experience to the SM group by working within so many different sectors and scale of companies, just to make this project, their success will be our success.
Yes.
I'm not sure I answered the question, though.
No, yes, you did. And I think my takeaway from there is sometimes insights that make a big impact really come from very specific, particular experience of people, and then building up from there. Something that I picked up from what you mentioned. Yeah. But if there's anyone else in the panel who wants to add in to that, like in what ways has data or insight, like what's that balance between big data and data from real life people who have used it? Maybe Marla.
From my experience, like with some of my clients, it's the fail fast technique, wherein you do your best given the information you have at hand, and then the only way to test it is to let it play out in the market, and then you figure out how people react, and then you adjust as you go along. And I think it's a very healthy way to look at brands that way, because you treat a brand like a living, breathing thing. Some studios, their branding exercises are, well, what if the brand was a person? What personality would it have? It's a bit twee, but it's very helpful, because when you think of something, a brand that imbibes traits, then you can figure out that, well, on this day they might want to wear their evening gown, and the next day they want to wear their sporty attire. And when you think of a brand such as SM, it's more of because everybody has an SM story, everybody has memories of it, and then the only way that you can figure out how it will do is watch them to react to it.
Yeah, I actually heard from some podcasts that the brand is the experience, but the experience is also the brand. Like, what happens to the brand? How does it evolve when it's out there into the world? And actually, I'm looking into some questions that the audience has. It actually kind of relates to what Marla was talking about. Here's a question. Looking back at the inconsistencies of the SM brand from before, showcased a while ago, what are some steps that the SM side will take to ensure the consistency of the brand refresh? This feels like a question for Mara.
Yeah, I have to say it's not been easy. It's not a one-time thing. This brand refresh is a really long process, as Dom mentioned. So there are a lot of times when people might say, "Oh, but can I try this actually?" Even if we have guidelines. So it's really just a matter of instilling the discipline and the faith in the guidelines as well. That you can definitely find something that you need to solve a design problem in the guidelines that have been produced. So I have a good team with me. So there are 3 people who actually help with the hand holding of everyone. Of course, as much as possible, we try to make sure that everyone just works with the guidelines, but at least anytime they need help, they work with that core team. So it's really, really hard when a brand is out there in the world. Really, it's so to make sure that it doesn't happen is really the faith in the guidelines, and also the understanding that sometimes people will still make their own changes, and sometimes that's really okay.
Yeah, I think it really evolves, but I think it's coming back to clarity that having the SM team having gone through that experience of really getting to know Domenic, really getting to converse with Domenic, I think allows for clarity on how to move forward. I don't know, Domenic, if you have something to add on to what Mara has shared as well, or if that answers it. Oh, you're on mute? There we go.
Still getting not used to that. But it's almost, again, it's also a bit like Marla was saying about the challenges, as I know, knowing the problem. Once you find the problem, you find the solution. That slide of the different logos, I think that's the brief. That's the problem. And that was that. So therefore, them moving ahead, I mean, it would have been a challenge if nobody agreed what the problem was, but everybody agreed what the problem was. And I was consistently, because when I did the interviews, Mara wasn't with me. I was just doing it because they needed to be confidential. But it was, I mean, some people would just say, please, Dom, just give me some guidelines. I need to know give me some consistency. But guidelines, they're not a rule book. There is scope for maneuver. But I think it's, when we got to that point, it was easier then to sort of move on and I say develop. But I say this was not a vanity project. This wasn't just about, I want to do something. There were clear objectives, which is what I was trying to show you at the beginning. But one of my partners, Michael Beirut, who has done the work for Verizon in New York, I mean, he sort of says to me, or says to us, he's ended up with this tick. He said, any of you would do this. I mean, I think anybody out there would probably come to similar conclusions with what we've ended up doing for SM, but it was not about revolution, it's about evolution. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then what we've been trying to do is also elevate the use of it. We haven't really talked about this. Imagery is a big thing. We've been having long discussions about. We did a lot of work, which again hasn't been shown, but on language and tone of voice. And the brand story, which Angelo talked about, is actually was really important, because again, I like storytelling as an idea. So again, I'm not sure I'm answering the question, but I think I was actually reading some of the questions in the chat room as well, so I was getting distracted by that. But so I think that's where it's been an ongoing process for Mara and I, and that's I'm still staggered that we did it through a pandemic. So, but then our own well-being was important. I mean, we were going into meetings where we were all wearing masks, and it was a really trying time for the world, and you've got to see it in that context, because it's not just about, I say, the vanity. It was actually that how SM is part of the society within the Philippines. And I mean, Mara doesn't quite know this, but there are some people that one of our longest employees at Pentagram in London is Filipino, and she's so proud.
Oh, that's
when
amazing.
she came back,
That's good to know. I didn't know.
She brought me so many bags that she was so proud. And every time I would come out with me, said I was just talking, and she just. But I said you've got to keep this very confidential. But but she was so proud. I mean, I sat down and talked to her about what SM meant, and there's a very personal connection with her. So that's useful.
Yeah, I actually wanted to zoom into what you said. It was really helpful that when you say that sometimes the brand is not a vanity project, and sometimes as designers we do get overly excited about coming up with something fancy and big and something crazy, right? But it's so important to really know what the problem is, what to solve, and really build on clarity on that and to create insight on that. I would like to keep this conversation going because it's so interesting. Domenic, do you have anything last to say?
No, I was about to say, don't get me wrong. I love those projects as well.
Yes.
But but I think what we've been able to create. I mean, it would have been wrong just to say, right, we're going to strip everything away and we're just going to start again. That's not, I think, responsible design. And again, Mara and I talked a lot about sustainability and how companies are moving towards that position of integrity. I mean, the work I do with the London Design Festival every year is complete. We can do whatever we like. It's completely different, but that's for different audiences, different project. I say this is a progression. I mean, I have 3 children. My children are growing up. A brand like SM is growing up through the years, and but the way to responsibility can be strong on these. I mean, sorry to also, the democratization of design is very important. I mean, we are not about elitist design, and what I love about Canva is the accessibility. It is really important. Design doesn't elevate itself to some, beyond people. Design can just impact people's lives in very positive ways, whether it's just about designing your daughter's birthday card or the football team for Marla, whatever. But it can be great things as well. We do a lot of work for charities, healthcare charities in London, Battersea Dogs Home, which is famous. We do a lot of work to help people. It's not all about financial gain.
Yes, that's a beautiful end to a wrap. It's a beautiful end to what you were saying, right? I have to wrap up. This was such a beautiful conversation, but I do want to synthesize like very important things here on the role of designers. And I think Domenic was talking about that, where I think the role of us designers is to provide creative approaches to communicate the importance of design, even those who may find it harder to understand. It's to acknowledge that not everybody may speak our language, but at the end of the day, we share in the experience of wanting to be seen, to be understood, and to be cared for. And if us designers can offer a compassionate approach to communicate with people that may not share our knowledge, then we expand a bigger community that can potentially support and appreciate the value of design even more. So designing for all will be a continuous and collaborative process of sharing the responsibility of making the complexity of design simple to appreciate and understand. Thank you so much to the panelists. I wish we could just have a separate session and just do this all over again. I would be down for that. But I hope everybody here enjoyed that conversation. I am sure we will all leave this session bringing with us new learnings and new ways of looking and designing. Thank you, everyone who joined today's session. At this point, I would like to call on Design Center Executive Director Ria Matute to join me and our panelists for a photo op. Hi, Miss Ria.
Hey, thank you. Wonderful talk, no? We wish it could get extended, being such a design geek.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much. All right,
Thank you.
take that picture.
Do we just smile? Is it done?
Okay, the photo.
Okay, Car took the photo. Okay.
But thank you for that photo. I hope I was smiling properly. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Domenic. Thank you, Mara, Marla, Angelo, and to everybody in Design Week and to the audience. We value your feedback. Please take the time to let us know what you thought of this roundtable by scanning the QR code and completing the feedback form. Those who accomplish the form will be able to get e-certificates for the session. We have so much in store for everyone here in the coming days. For updates on all things Design Week, head over to our social media accounts, DTI-Design Center of the Philippines on Facebook, and at dti.designcenterph on Instagram. Once again, on behalf of the Design Center of the Philippines, we would like to thank our Design Week partners, the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board Philippines, First United Building, Hub Make Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our official online magazine partner, our media partner, our government partner, and our satellite events. Keep your posts and stories coming, everyone. For all your Design Week love notes on social media, don't forget to use the hashtags DesignWeekPH 2022 and hashtag Design for All. Stick around for our talk right up next in partnership with the Embassy of Spain in the Philippines, Design in the World, Designing Livability in Cities. And again, thank you once again to our Design Week community, and we hope you can join us for the rest of Design Week Philippines 2022. Thank you and goodbye.
Are we still on or not?
Yeah. Can we talk now? I don't know.